Today I want to show you my Model Cycles song mode workaround.
Freebie.
Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome to Freebeat, where I post new music-related content every single day. So if that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Let's get started. So in front of me, I have the Elektron Model Cycles, one of my favorite groove boxes, and the machine that possesses probably the best sequencer that you can get your hands on in the budget groove box category. And since we are going to be talking about the sequencer today, that means that anything I say in this video about the model cycles can also be applied to the model samples. So one of the biggest drawbacks of the sequencer on these two devices is that there is no song mode. I see that complaint pop up all the time, and while it's not a deal breaker for me personally, I do agree that a proper song mode on these devices would be awesome. However, I do have a workaround for creating a song mode, if you will. And I kind of want to show that off because I don't see a lot of people talking about this feature of the sequencer on these boxes, but it's essentially pattern chaining with a couple extra steps. So the first thing we should talk about is the pattern layout. So we have this pattern button right here. When we press it, we've got 6 different banks of patterns, right? So we have bank 1, bank 2, bank 3, bank 4, bank 5, and bank 6. Each of those banks has 16 individual slots down here. So on my bank 1, you can see I've got all 16 of those slots filled. On my bank 2, you can see I've got all 16 slots filled. And I've got nothing on bank 3, 4, 5, or 6. So, well, apparently there's 1 on number 6. Don't know what that is, but let's ignore that. So as you can see, there are a lot of different patterns to work from, 96 to be exact. Now, each of those patterns can be up to 4 measures long, which are usually indicated by this LED here. It'll show you which of your 4 measures that you're on. When you're playing a pattern live, you can actually go into the pattern menu and queue up the next pattern that you want to play simply by pushing the button. And it will switch to that pattern once it's done playing the current pattern that you're on. And you can actually tell it when to switch, depending on how many times you want it to play a particular pattern. We'll touch on that in just a minute. You can actually chain your patterns together as well, which is really, really cool. I will show you how to do that. And when we put all this together, it sort of creates a fake. Now, it's a bit more, hands-on than a traditional song mode, because you do have to chain through stuff as you are playing your song. But if you are recording your song externally into another piece of gear, then you can certainly have both hands available to do that, as long as everything else is programmed into your song so you're not twiddling knobs as you are playing your track to record it. So I've got my Model Cycles track, No Better Time, loaded up, and let's go ahead and select Bank 1, Pattern 1, and hit play. So this is the intro of the song. So you can see it's 2 measures long. So we're on the first measure. Now we're on the second measure. Now, there we go. And it's not going to progress to the next pattern until I tell it to. So I press pattern, and then press pattern number 2. Now when it reaches the end of this, it'll switch. There we go. Now we're on pattern 2. To go to pattern 3, simple enough. Pattern number 3. Here comes number 3. Now we're going to go to pattern 4. And that's pattern number 4. Now it'll keep repeating, of course, until I tell it to change. So one thing that I've just noticed is that my first 4 patterns all are in a row. It's just numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they each just have to play once. So we can actually chain these during playback to make it a little easier on us. So to chain our patterns, it's actually pretty easy. Simply press the pattern button. Now hold what pattern you want to start with, and then press each pattern individually that you want to chain, all while you're holding that first one. So I'm holding number 1, and we want number 2, number 3, and number 4. Now you can see on the display it says A1, A2, A3, and A4. Let's press play and see what happens. So we're on pattern 1. Watch right here on the screen. Now we're on pattern 2. Now we're on pattern 3. Here comes pattern 4. Now I'll press pattern, and I want to go to pattern 6. I believe that's the next one. Now, it didn't instantly switch to my next pattern there, which is kind of weird. You might be thinking, well, why didn't it instantly switch? It waited another measure. And that's because there are some specific settings on pattern 6 that tell it not to switch immediately. And the way we bring up those settings is by holding Function and pressing Page. That's going to bring up the scale setup, which is kind of a weird name for this section because it has nothing to do with a musical scale, but how the pattern itself scales rhythmically. So, mode is set to pattern. We can just leave that be for now. That's a completely different beast of a feature. Same thing with scale. We're going to leave that alone. That's basically the speed at which it plays the pattern back. Not tempo, but the actual scale against that tempo. Anyway, the two things we want to worry about are LEN for length and CHG for change. So this particular pattern is 32 steps long. Every pattern we've looked at so far has been 32 steps long. That's 2 measures. 16 steps per measure, 2 measures, 32 steps. However, change is set to 64. What that means is no matter the instruction that I've given the sequencer to change patterns, it's not going to leave pattern number 6, the pattern that we're on, until 64 steps have played, if that makes sense. So it's going to play our 2-measure pattern twice, no matter what. So if we back out, and if we go back to pattern number 6 here, let's go ahead and initiate a very, very simple pattern chain to demonstrate this. So pattern, hold number 6, then press number 7. So it says A6 to A7. So in theory, it would just play pattern number 6 once, and then pattern number 7 once. But because there's a setting on pattern number 6 to play twice, that's what it's going to do. Let's listen. Keep your eye up here, top left. So there's once. Now it does it again. Now it's going to move to number 7 right here. And pattern number 7 is not set to 64 steps before it changes. It's only set to 32. And that's because pattern number 8 is actually a transition between that pattern in the next section, because pattern number 8 is also set to 32 steps, which I know it's a little confusing, but feel free to pause and go back and watch this as many times as you need. Let me demonstrate here. So we're going to chain pattern 6 into pattern 7 into pattern 8. Now check this out. Pattern 6 happens twice. Here's the first time. Here's the second time. Here comes pattern 7. Now here comes pattern 8. Now I'm going to pattern 9. Now here comes pattern 10. And pattern 11. And this pattern is 4 measures long. 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to switch to pattern 12. Here comes 13. Number 14. Number 15. And number 16. Now that we're on pattern 16, you might be thinking, well, how do you get to the next set of patterns, your next bank? And it's actually super easy. So when it comes to switching banks of patterns while playing live, it's as easy as playing the pattern you're on. So number 16, here we go. Press pattern, press 2 for bank 2, and then number 1, the first pattern of bank 2. Now if I press pattern here, you'll see we're on bank 2, pattern number 1. Now unfortunately we can't chain patterns between banks. That's kind of a bummer, but I still think it's pretty easy to go from bank 1, pattern 16, press play, pattern, bank 2, pattern 1 of bank 2. Just like that. So hopefully this video was able to clear up a little bit of the, not necessarily misinformation out there, but certainly a little bit of confusion that I've seen revolving around the model cycles and model sample sequencer. There is no proper song mode, but if you practice your pattern chaining and be sure to remember the function page menu where you can set the scale to change. For instance, here's a pattern that we're on. It's only 32 steps long, but it's instructed to only change after playing 128 steps. So it's going to play through 4 times. So as long as you can get your head around that menu, combo it with pattern chaining on the fly and switching between banks on the fly, it's not that hard to get a full track out of one of these 2 amazing little groove boxes. So I do hope that you found this video helpful. If so, be sure to leave a like on it. If not, you can always leave a dislike. That's okay too. Doesn't hurt my feelings, just makes me try that much harder next time. Either way, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Thank you so very much for being here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.